What's up, everybody? It's your boy Tru Element 78 in the building with
Your one and only reigning, defending Mondo Lucha Hall of Famer. And cocaine, my friends, is a hell of a drug. The X-Man, Xavier Mustafa.
And you can just call me shocked and appalled after watching that episode, or also known as the natural Chris Black.
or the next victim of New Jack, Chris Black. Anyways, today we are
Never
here.
that.
Anyways, today we are here to review episode 3 of season 2 of Viceland's Dark Side of the Ring, entitled "The Life and Crimes of New Jack." So obviously, this episode is about the wrestler New Jack, who pretty much got his jump start to his career down in Smoky Mountain Wrestling with Jim Cornette. Moved on up to ECW, where he pretty much took things off the rails in the hardcore world of professional wrestling. And that's pretty much where his career, you kind of say, ended, because after that it was back to the VFWs and gymnasiums of old, I guess, for New Jack. But we're going to get into it. First of all, New Jack, real name Jerome Young. We don't really have a lot of background on him. Jim Cornette said if he had to go into a courtroom and provide evidence to anything that New Jack ever told him, he would not be able to. He had heard everything from that he had a couple bodies under his belt to that he was a bounty hunter. The one thing that we do know is that he was trained by Ray Candy. Are you guys familiar with Ray Candy? I know.
Never heard the name before.
I've heard the name before. I just don't know from where.
All right.
I can't imagine New Jack like learning but taking bumps and shit like a rookie. I can't.
But yes, so he said Ray Candy got him started in wrestling, and he said the one day Ray Candy sat him down and told him something. He said it fucked up his head, which I don't understand how it really fucked up his head. But he was like, "You got to create a persona, a gimmick, something that's gonna stand out, that nobody's ever seen before." And he said he came up with the name New Jack after seeing the movie New Jack City, and he said he could see it as something that people would chant. So he decided to run with that name, New Jack. A little bit of the background that we did get in this episode is that he said that he was mainly so fucked up in the head because growing up his dad hated his mom, and he said one day his mom came home and his dad ended up stabbing her. I believe he said his dad stabbed his mom 5 times in front of the family like it wasn't shit. Then a little bit down the road, his dad shot his mom in the knees as she said she was going to leave him and was picking up New Jack. So he's like, if you saw the shit that I saw growing up, you'd understand why I snap out sometimes.
You know what? Before we get deep into this, I want to add a little bit more background on New Jack because I listened to a few of his shoot interviews, and he kind of opened up a little bit about some little stuff. New Jack's seems like he's a very private person, but he said when he came out of high school, he spent 3 years in prison, right out of high school, and this next quote will kind of give you a mindset of where he was when he got into the business. He said, and I quote, "I didn't get fucked in prison, and I wasn't going to get fucked in wrestling." He refused to play games. He didn't want to play the game, should I say. He didn't want to play the rookie role. None of that, yes, sir, type of shit. Nope. He was New Jack when he got in, and he got in the wrestling business at 30. As a grown man, as he said.
Listen, I thought it was ironic that he said that he got that character out of New Jack City. Nah, bro. You was in New Jack City. You was Pookie. I don't care what nobody say. He was Pookie, and that's how all this shit got started. Because he got caught with... Well, anyway, you seen the movie. You know what happened to Pookie before they dragged him off. That was New Jack. They didn't kill him, though. They let him free. And then he became a professional wrestler, but he got hooked on that cocaine, baby.
See, the funny thing is, I would have made the challenge for WrestleMania that when we do the New Jack episode, you got to tag him when you share it on Twitter. But I couldn't imagine New Jack sitting there tweeting. I just can't imagine it.
You know, when you talk about a man, and I know we're going to talk about this tomorrow, I don't think I've never met a man in my life that really don't give a fuck. Like, if don't give a fuck was a person, that is definitely New Jack. I watched this whole episode where my mouth dropped. Like, the stuff he was saying, like, and I know we're going to get into it in a minute, but calling people honkies right off the bat, I mean, like, well, I'm like, and Jim Cornette allowed this?
I
Okay,
love
is
it.
it safe to say? Is it safe to say? Because my wife, she's a mental health therapist, and she talks to me about certain stuff. Is it safe to say that this man is mentally ill? Because after all the trauma that he witnessed growing up, that obviously damaged him, and I think this man is seriously mentally ill,
Yeah,
like bipolar or some
yeah,
shit.
no, he's dealing with trauma that he never dealt with. So this was his release therapy. Anybody, I don't care really how high you get. First of all, doing drugs kind of symbolizes a little bit of trauma in your life because you're trying to numb something or forget something and not feel any pain. But also, most hardcore wrestlers have trauma in their past, and that pain of barbed wire and light tubes and bullshit is a release.
Yeah, it's like cutting for girls or women or whatever.
Yeah, although I watched a lot of ECW back in the day. New Jack wasn't one that was really taking a lot of bumps. New Jack was just fucking people up.
That's why I question, like, how much training did he have? Like, I don't know if there's any, like, in his shoot interviews, he said, a couple times he tied up with, like, certain people like Rob Van Dam, and, he was, trading holds and shit. But I'm like, I can't even picture that.
Right.
I've never seen him do any wrestling move, not even a fucking suplex.
I've seen him do a suplex.
Okay.
Jim Cornette kind of summed up New Jack because I've watched his shoot interviews. The most famous one is where he actually walked in on a Jim Cornette interview on YouShoot and pretty much came in singing "Why Can't We Be Friends" because he had left Smoky Mountain Wrestling on bad terms with Jim Cornette, and then listening to Jim Cornette talk about this episode where he pretty much said his asshole jumped up into his throat when New Jack walked in because he didn't know what to expect.
Hell yeah.
Which is pretty much, I know Chris Black knows that feeling whenever Devin August walks into a room that he's in.
Man, see?
Right.
Remember, y'all, if he gets his ass whooped, it's this dude's fault.
But anyways, he said Jim Cornette's opinion of, and we all know how Jim Cornette goes off. The Viceland series I kind of like because you see that level side of Jim Cornette, that he's Jim Cornette the person and not Jim Cornette the character when it comes to the Viceland series, which a lot of, we don't normally use this word around here, smarks and marks need to understand when they listen to the podcast or see what he puts on Twitter, is that that's the character and not the person. But he's a lot more level-headed. He pretty much said, to sum up New Jack, is that he's Eddie Murphy as a wrestler. If Eddie Murphy was a wrestler and just didn't give a fuck, because he's like, he's comedic, but he's also going to hang your ass, like, if you fuck with him, which is also how he introduced himself to Sandman. Sandman said he was the first person to meet him when he came into ECW, and the first thing he said to him was, "Don't fuck me." He's like, "Oh, you're great. Like, you're going to fit in perfectly around here." Now I got to ask Xavier Mustafa, did you steal your name from Mustafa Saeed?
That's okay. So I'm going to say, okay, so the name Mustafa was
what had happened was
actually given to me, and I think that might have been where it was from.
Is it He Who Shall Not Be Named?
Yes. Wait, no. Actually, no. I'm thinking of the other He Should Be Not Be Named. No, it wasn't from that guy. That guy actually gave me the first name with a terrible last name, and then the other guy gave me the last name, and that's how I was born.
Xavier Mustafa don't ever give out names on the podcast.
Well, He Who Shall Not Be Named, that's more of an inside joke. We don't want to, I mean, we can say his name. It doesn't mean anything to anybody else. He's a nobody.
God damn.
He is, whatever. He plays like he's a promoter. He's not. Maybe we should do an episode about that fool. But then again, he's nobody, so nobody would really know who we're talking about.
Maybe we'll do an exposed episode, exposing the business.
So what happened was I was given the name Xavier, and then it was a stupid last name that I really didn't care for. And so I left that quote-unquote training facility, if you will, and went and started training at a real company, which is actually Bruce City Wrestling. And the promoter there, Frank DeFalco, gave me the last name Mustafa. So I think he might have gotten it from that. I'm pretty sure he probably did. So I have to thank him for that last name because the other last name was trash.
Did you have the Xavier Mustafa? You had that whole name when the Urban Horseman became a thing?
Yep.
Okay.
I've always had that name. The only other name I've had was, well, I don't even want to say that name.
Nah, go ahead. Go ahead. You already opened the can of worms. Go ahead. What was your original name?
Well, no. What was my original name? It was a name we came up because I couldn't have Xavier Mustafa because there was somebody else with the name Ian Xavier.
Oh Lord!
So they said we have to change your name, and I was tag teaming with this guy named Denty Moore. So that's a playoff, of course, Soup. So my name ended up being James T. Campbell. And
See, I don't think I knew about that.
And we were, what kind of soup were we? We were, I don't know.
Chicken
but the tag
noodles.
team name was something soup. Cajun soup. There we go.
Cajun soup. Oh, man. So instead of coming out and throwing pancakes, y'all threw ramen into the crowd?
And then that guy, Denty Moore, ended up becoming Matt Winchester, so a.k.a. the Beer City Bruiser.
Oh, okay. Oh, y'all was throwing motherfuckers around there. Y'all two big guys. All right. So,
good times.
As I was watching this, and they started getting into talking about the gangsters and D'Lo Brown being their enforcer, a.k.a. Bump Guy, it was kind of interesting because I started thinking about back at this time and the gangsters existing and then WWE doing their Nation of Domination, and I was like, oh, that was like the PG version of the gangsters.
Basically.
And I had never made that comparison before, but just D'Lo Brown being there, I was just like, oh, okay. Now it makes a lot more sense on why the Nation of Domination was a thing, because you had this super extreme version of it over here in Smoky Mountain. And they're like, oh, that kind of works down there. Let's make one on the main roster, but then we'll create a redneck group called DOA that they can go against a little bit.
But no New Jack because lawsuit.
Yeah, who would have been the new? I guess Owen Hart would have been the new Jack of the Nation of Domination.
Because liability.
Because you know what they say? They always said, I like Dave Chappelle's joke. He always said, when you see a group of black people and they got one white guy with them, that white guy is the most dangerous one in that group because you don't know what the hell he did to earn the respect of them black dudes.
You know what?
Right.
Interesting story. You guys bring up the Nation of Domination. Like, New Jack spoke about his tryout that he had with the WWE, I think back in 2004. And he was told by, his name's escaping me right now. Damn it. Man of 1,001 Holds? Malenko told him specifically, New Jack, do not speak to Ms. McMahon unless he speaks to you. And New Jack was like, is he fucking with me or what? So Ms. McMahon happened to be walking past, and he was like, hey, Vince, what's up? You know, my name's New Jack. And Vince gave him a look like, oh, okay. And he said he went to check the booking sheet, and his name had been taken off. And the guy walked up to him and was like, well, here's your pay. We're not going to use you tonight, but you can stay to watch the show. New Jack's like, man, fuck this. And left.
Sounds legit.
I can't believe he was actually there for a tryout. I mean, this was 2004, so after all of these felonious assaults.
Yeah, I do want to bring up something, and then we're going to really get into the New Jack thing. And it had to do with Mustafa Saeed, how they talked about he used to smoke pencil shavings. And then they talked about he found a bag on the side of the building, and he smoked it. And then New Jack said he was in the locker room. And then somebody's like, hey, Mustafa's down there fighting the police. And he goes down and he's like, all he remembers is Mustafa Saeed yelling, they want to fuck me. They want to fuck me. Everybody want to fuck me. And that just had
you gotta be crazy as hell to smoke some goddamn pencil shavings.
And I was just thinking, I was like, man, as crazy as New Jack was, and Mustafa was offering everybody these pencil shavings, he wasn't smoking that shit.
I guess he ain't that damn crazy.
I was like, that's crazy. But anyways, now let's really get into the whole New Jack thing. So down at Smoky Mountain Wrestling, pretty much it was the gangsters down there with an AS as with the ass as New Jack put it in the documentary, and the whole way they got heat down there was kind of similar to how you guys got heat from the stories I've heard. Just white people show up to the wrestling shows. We're the only black guys in the area, so we're just gonna piss off white people.
Exactly.
And I like how they talked about the promo that he cut where he was like, OJ Simpson, keep up the good work. Now it's two less that we got to worry about, and everybody down there calling them niggers. Like D'Lo Brown said, the word nigger was thrown around down there so much it was almost like synonymous with hello for them.
Right. And Ricky Morton even told New Jack, he's like, look, dude, you need to learn how to separate yourself from the character. Yeah, they're calling you niggas. He's like, but we selling tickets. He's like, you making money. It's like you got to separate yourself from your performance.
Right. And New Jack said he just refused and could not get used to that word just being lobbied at him down there, even though it was the response that they were going for. It's like, it's just a weird feeling having that be the response that you're going for and you're getting it, but you still feel some type of way on the inside. How did you guys feel when you had to get heat like that?
So with us, I was always that person that don't like to call Caucasian people honkies or use the N-word or anything like that. So I wanted to go the route of where we would allude to our African Americanness and their lack of melanin instead of just outright saying it. And we did that most of the time, but every once in a while, T.C. Washington will not adhere to those suggestions and straight call people all kind of racist
I was
names.
gonna say who. I was just about to ask you who was better at cutting the promo and getting white people riled up, T.C. Washington or New Jack?
New Jack definitely, but TC is definitely.
Well, I guess TC ain't sniffed a whole bunch of cocaine, before cutting promo. So who knows what he might say? But you know what? New Jack had I don't know, like a different kind of heat. Like they actually didn't like him. The fans, although the fans down in Illinois, they went along with the gimmick. That was the fun thing about it. Yeah, they understood it was a very racist angle, so they kind of played the part as well.
And
so they came down there with their...
And it was also the mid-2000s.
Yeah, I mean, they came down there with their Confederate flags and waving their Confederate flags and gave us a hell of a lot of heat during the show. Then afterwards, they were shaking our hands. Oh, my God, you guys are awesome, blah, blah, blah. So, like I said, they understood that the show was show, and afterwards, I mean, we're real people.
But I would have been like, where the fuck y'all get the Confederate flags from? Like, y'all just got them motherfuckers. Like, hold on.
They got them from? They always had them.
It was like we just went downstairs in the basement and pulled it out of the box. It was just hanging on our bathroom wall.
But it was just crazy. I like D-Lo had another quote where he said Hitler could have walked out of the curtain and been a baby face. They had so much heat down there in Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Dude, the three guys we were wrestling were three bald-headed white dudes. Okay? Draw your own conclusions.
Yeah, so, and then it got to a point where he was cutting promos so vile against white people and saying the most outrageous things that Smoky Mountain Wrestling had to put up a disclaimer saying the views of the gangsters are not the views of Smoky Mountain Wrestling or of the station that they were airing on, which was just wild. So then the documentary gets to one of the turning points in New Jack's career. Once he left Smoky Mountain Wrestling, he went to ECW, started doing, I guess he said he was doing a little bit of drugs, I guess maybe in Smoky Mountain, but I guess the majority and bulk of it came in ECW. And Jim Cornette pretty much summed up his career going to ECW. He said he was kind of afraid of him going to ECW because in Smoky Mountain, like pushing the limits wasn't that difficult for New Jack, and he was all to his own. But in ECW, where it's already hardcore and everybody's trying to outdo one another, and New Jack has to be the most hardcore and the most real, going there he didn't think was going to be the best situation for New Jack. And it turned out that it really wasn't. He got more addicted to drugs, and his first major incident that got him pulled into a courtroom was the Eric Coulis incident. Most people who know about wrestling know about it as the mass transit incident, where Eric Coulis was a 17-year-old wrestler, professional wrestler who had a couple of matches against midgets, mainly this one named Tiny the Terrible, who had made an appearance on Jerry Springer. He showed that in an episode saying he got the majority of the pussy he got in his life based off the Jerry Springer appearance. But yeah, Eric Coulis was 17 years old. He lied about his age, told everybody he was 21 or 18, and the not Jim. Paul Heyman had told New Jack to go out there and have 7 minutes with Eric Coulis. And Eric Coulis came to New Jack earlier in the night and had asked him could he get some offense in, told him kind of what he wanted to do and that he wanted to get some color and everything. And New Jack took that as a slight that you don't walk up to a veteran in the locker room and tell him what you want to do or ask him if he can get in some offense or whatever. So
actually, let me add to that. First, New Jack said, "Okay."
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, I guess maybe I did make it sound like that he told the kid that. He just told the kid, okay. Like, well, he didn't tell the kid, okay, that he get in some offense. He told him pretty much like, fuck off, I guess. But when he told him he wanted to get some color, he was like, okay, yeah, I'll give you some color.
Okay, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second. So I could almost understand the disrespect if it was supposed to be a squash match. If everyone understood this is a squash match, then no, you don't ask me to get some offense in. Now, would I have slice to do? No. Maybe I would have just been stiff with him, but unless it wasn't understood that it was supposed to be a squash match. It was supposed to be a regular 7-minute match. Of course, the guy he just got into ECW. He wants to make a name for himself. He's gonna want to, get some shit in. New Jack just went off the deep end.
What's your thoughts, Mustafa?
My thoughts is, and I know I've said this on the show before. If you got a problem with somebody, you need to say something. Don't give me that. All right, that's cool shit, and you're not cool, and then you go out there and then I got to fight for my life. Because let me tell you something, and I'm going to go on record, I'm going to say this right now, and people can send this to New Jack. Motherfucker, I'm going to kill you before you kill me. So, yeah, that's how that would have been. That's how that would have got handled in the ring. I know a lot of wrestlers that do that stuff, and I just don't get it. Like, clearly communicate, hey, if that's what the match is supposed to be, say, hey, I don't know if you know, this is really supposed to be a squash match, so you're really not going to get any offense. That way, everybody's on the same page. There's no problems.
Yeah, I'm not
but
gonna
when you say, yeah, and you have an agenda that you're going to go out there and do something different, that to me is reckless.
Yeah, you just gave me something to kind of think about. New Jack did kind of come off as kind of passive aggressive in here instead of addressing things prior.
Well, I'm gonna speak more on that later on.
He would go out there and just take advantage of people's bodies and health and wellness. And like,
but you know what? New Jack was on some fuck shit. He said before the match, what I'm about to do to him will be talked about for the next 10 years. So he already knew he was going to do some fuck shit.
Yeah, and it's almost 25 years later. And also, a little side note, and they didn't bring this up in here because, they're mainly focused on what they're focused on the Viceland series, which is the character. This is what caused ECW their first pay-per-view, was the mass transit incident. Their first pay-per-view was supposed to be that year, and once they ended up going to court for it, it got canceled, and they had to wait a full year before they could get their shows on pay-per-view again. But let me get... go ahead.
So, after that, and going to court and blowing the goddamn first pay-per-view, was New Jack that big of a draw for ECW that they will continue to book him?
Well, I would argue yes at the time because I was watching ECW. I was watching ECW. ECW would have still been around if the Dudleys had stayed there and you hadn't had the Eddie Guerreros and Chris Benoit's and all of those people headed out there, which they were pretty much gone by then anyway, but you still had people down there who could do some things for the company. But New Jack told the kid that he would help him get some color, and then he said he went out there into the match. He was high as fuck. He I forgot who didn't show up, and they got replaced by
Axel Rotten.
Yeah, Axel Rotten hadn't shown up for the show. So Devon Dudley had the tag with Mass Transit. They told Devon Dudley, hey, we're going to throw you out of the ring. Stay out of the fucking way. He got in there. He said instead of using a razor blade, he ended up using a surgical scalpel that he had like secured to like some wood. He said he tried to cut the kid and nothing happened like several times. So then he just went straight across and just sliced him clean open with the scalpel. And you could hear his dad.
A human being.
Dude sliced him open to the bone.
Yeah, and you could hear his dad in the crowd yelling, "He's only 17. He's only 17." And then.
So here's another problem I had on that side of it. You're 17 years old. You lie about your age. You lie about your wrestling training. That makes me kind of feel like he got what he deserved. But at the same time, it was still overboard. It was still too much.
If he would have just got his ass whooped, yeah, he got what he deserved. But
well, that's also the funny thing though, because New Jack didn't know how old he was. Like that's no right for you to go just slice somebody with a fucking scalpel. Where did he get the scalpel? I wanted them to ask that question. Where did you get the scalpel?
Psycho.
But still,
who brings a scalpel to a match?
Where do you get a scalpel? We were in the middle of a pandemic, and they were on surgical stuff.
It probably was the scalpel that he used to chop up his cocaine.
Probably.
It probably was in his cocaine bag.
The
last doctor he killed.
Mass transit should have hopped the fuck right up then if it had some cocaine still on it. But yeah, you can hear his dad yelling at him, and then the medics come in. New Jack still stomping on him, saying, "I don't give a fuck if this fat fuck dies right here." And so security
he dies.
And so you're talking about murder, man.
So security escorts him out of the ring. They said mass transit ended up getting 50 stitches, which is just wild. 50 stitches.
And flipped off the crowd on his way to get them 50 stitches.
Well, he flipped off New Jack on the way out of the ring. He said he had nerve damage in his forehead, and they ended up going to court. And when they went to court, New Jack said it was a jury. I believe it was 7 people, and it was 1 old black guy and 6 white women. And the black guy kept nodding off in the courtroom, and he was asking his attorney, "Is there any like plea deal that they're offering?" He told him that they were offering 5 years, and New Jack was like, "Oh, that ain't really gonna work. We're gonna have to figure something else out." So he ends up making a deal with Tiny the Terrible, who had went to the event with Eric Coulis, thinking he was going to be on the show with him, but Eric kind of blew him off and went into the match by himself. So Tiny was pissed off at him about that. Then after the show, Eric's dad refused to give Tiny a ride back to the hotel or back home or wherever they were going. They eventually worked it out where his dad did drive him, but he said him and Eric weren't really cool again after that. And so he was like, fuck it. New Jack approached him, said, "Hey, what can we do for you to help us out?" And Tiny said, "Hey, you get me a spot on WWE television, I'll do or say whatever you need me to say." So he took the stand, said, and did whatever they needed him to say. And Paul Heyman also got up there. New Jack said that the dad had been calling him the M-word backstage after slicing his kid up. And so Paul Heyman had got on the stand, I should say. And they asked him, "Hey, so what happened?" He said, "Well, dad called him the M-word." And they were like, "Well, we're going to need you to say the word." Paul Heyman looks at New Jack, says, "I'm sorry," puts his hand over his face, said he called him a nigger.
All right, so let's talk about this for a second, okay? Let's rewind. Let's talk about that shitty friend the midget was, okay? So you gonna throw your friend under the bus for a WWE shot?
Does this shock you?
Man, that's cold-blooded. I know.
Chris Black, go ahead and say what you always say about wrestlers.
They're whores.
That's cold-blooded.
And you know what? New Jack said that his dad, if he would have tried to get in the locker room, he was like, "I would have killed that motherfucker." And I was like, you know what? And just as fan, please, if you're a fan out there and you ever get Brody enough to think that you're going to charge up the wrestling ring or charge up the locker room, please don't do that.
This is one thing I'm going to say about the wrestling community. Wrestling community, it's weird. As bullshit as it can be sometimes, when shit happens, the wrestling community comes together. We protect our own. Sometimes we be some assholes. So that whole Paul Heyman line on the stand and all that good stuff is like, hey, bro, But I guess you got to protect your business and protect your guy. But I mean, I don't know if New Jack would work in 2020 because I think everybody in that locker room would have snitched on his fool ass. I would have told. Damn it, I ain't gonna lie. I'm not gonna go to jail for you. I'm not gonna get perjury charges. Sorry, brother. I'm going to 6ix9ine that ass.
I would
If that
imagine
makes
that
any
Dad probably did call an N-word. I know he said that Paul was working everybody, but I could imagine that would have
That
happened.
black dude cut his son from one ear to the other.
He called an N-word, bro.
I'm saying that black dude cut his son from one ear to the other one via his forehead.
Well, he said he wanted to get color. He agreed to it.
I'm pretty sure the N-word was the nicest thing he said to New Jack.
So Paul Heyman tells the jury what he said allegedly, and so the jurors perk up. Then the next thing that came out was that the kid lied about his age, so that pretty much got the case thrown out. They tried to sue New Jack in civil court. That also got thrown out, and so New Jack continued to be a free man. Now, next in the documentary, they kind of glossed over the event, and this is one of the most iconic images in professional wrestling. And they showed the second part of it. They didn't show the first part of it, and it is a match between Vic Grimes and New Jack, and it was a scaffold match. And the part they didn't show was part one. They just kind of mentioned casually kind of what happened or what New Jack's policy is, which I would say if I was a professional wrestler, it would probably be my policy too, but I wouldn't take it to the extreme of what New Jack did. So we'll fill in the blanks. This wrestler named Vic Grimes and New Jack are scheduled to have a scaffolding match. They agree that they're going to go off the side of the scaffolding match and fall through the tables that are stacked up below. They're fighting on top. They're fighting up top, and it's time for them to take the dive. Vic Grimes is like, fuck this, I'm not going to do it anymore. And New Jack was like, yes, the fuck you are. And so Vic Grimes tries to resist falling from the scaffolding and through the tables. New Jack grabs him and takes him down with him. They both go through all the tables. But instead of falling separately onto the ground, Vic Grimes and all 350 plus pounds of him lands on top of New Jack's head, cracking his skull.
Huh? Wait. Hold on. This is the one. Didn't he tase him?
No, that was part two. That was part two.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I'm filling in the blanks.
I'm getting my attempted murders mixed up. Sorry. Go
ahead. So I'm filling in the blanks. And so they land on the ground, and Vic Grimes lands on New Jack's head, cracking his skull. And so he says now he can't sleep. He has constant headaches. Kind of sounds like somebody that we got on the podcast. Maybe you should take somebody to court.
He said he also lost sight in one of his eyes.
Yeah, he lost sight in one of his eyes, and he held a grudge for Vic Grimes after that. And he said Vic Grimes never contacted him after that. He never checked on him to see if he was okay. Never came to the hospital, sent the balloon or anything. So now it's like a year later, and they're scheduled to have another match against one another at another event. It's supposed to be another scaffolding match. This one is supposed to be a record height scaffold match that has never been one higher.
So the first time didn't work out. What made you think the second time was gonna work out?
No, he had a plan for the second time. And you know what? Me and Mustafa have spoken on this podcast before. This is why you don't hesitate. Now, granted, it's kind of out of the ordinary to be throwing each other off of a damn scaffold, but that moment of hesitation fucked the whole spot up.
Right, and that's the main reason I said if I was a professional wrestler, I probably had the same policy, especially if it's supposed to be the highlight of the match. Like you're not chickening out if this is supposed to be the spot. Like
right.
Even like if you think back to like the Kurt Angle and Shane McMahon match in No Way Out when he was supposed to throw him through the glass window and it didn't break.
That wasn't planned.
I know that wasn't planned, but I'm just saying it didn't break. Shane McMahon didn't be like, all right, fuck it. Like, we're not going to do it. He was like, nope, keep throwing me to this motherfucker breaks because this is what we said we were going to do. Now, he didn't care how many times he landed on his head.
Oh, that was a nasty bump.
Oh, yeah, it definitely was. But so we go to the second match that they're scheduled to have, Vic Grimes comes up to New Jack in the locker room and says, "Hey man, like I don't want any hard feelings. I'm sorry about last time or whatever." And New Jack said he's thinking in his head. He didn't say it to Vic Grimes, but he's thinking in his head like, "Fuck you, dude. You didn't even check on me in the hospital. All the things I already said." And what he said he did before the match is he had went out and bought a taser. Sandman says that he even told him that he had got a taser and that he was going to tase the guy. So they climb up to the scaffold and they're having their match. New Jack pulls out the taser and starts tasing Vic Grimes. Vic Grimes starts saying, "Hey, I can't feel my legs." New Jack says, "Well, you're not going to need them." Throws him off the side of the scaffolding, and there's tables in the ring stacked up. But New Jack is aiming to throw him beyond the table stacked up in the ring and beyond the ring itself. But he undershoots, luckily for Vic Grimes. And Vic Grimes hits a few of the tables on the way down to the ring, lands about a foot from the floor in the ring, bounces off of the tables, bounces off of the ring, gets caught up in the ropes, and escapes with just a broken ankle.
And
New Jack says he was aiming for the floor or for the turnbuckle. And if he hadn't been as high, he would have probably been successful. And he would have had a murder on his hands.
I don't understand how he got away with attempted murder, especially now that he says, "I was trying to kill him."
Well, he says that now after the statute of limitations.
Shit.
New Jack, I can't feel my legs. You don't need them. What kind of shit is that? He could have been decapitated by that top rope. He could have hit the turnbuckle and snapped his neck like Owen Hart. He could have went through the table the wrong way. He could have actually went to the floor. There was no. What's what I'm looking for? Just
Justification?
didn't give no shits.
I had a
Didn't
question.
give a shit.
I
Didn't give a fuck.
got a question for you guys, and I couldn't tell it from the video, but I want to ask this question because I've heard this spoken about. What do you guys prefer, or what hurts more, ropes or cables?
I've never actually hit the ropes like WWE use ropes.
Okay.
So I've never was running the ropes or anything, so I can't tell you.
All right.
Both of them are fine until you get. I mean, both of them are gonna hurt to get used to them. Rope is probably a little harder to get used to because rope does not have the spring that cables do.
Okay. I was just thinking that because when he bounced and got caught up in the ropes, and I know that Mick Foley lost his ear with the elevator cables that they were using. And so I was just thinking like the whole decapitation thing, and like if you hit the ropes, is it going to be a little bit more give than the cables, or if it's cables, does that maybe feel a little bit better?
The rope saved his life.
I remember I was in a match with somebody, and I think the person was supposed to go over the top rope and spill to the floor. They go over the top rope, but they hold on to the rope. As I'm clotheslining them over, my body is now over that rope. They let go of that rope. That rope hit me in my chest so hard. Ooh. I was like, oh, I'm finna whoop that ass. But I didn't kill him.
Well, New Jack didn't kill anybody either, so how far did you take it?
He tried to. He tried to. The guy, and when he said he could not feel his legs, threw him off of the scaffold into a unknown location at the time.
Yeah, so then they asked New Jack in this documentary, has there ever been a match or a time that he felt he took it too far? And he brings up this guy named Gypsy Joe, who was 72 years old, and his entire wrestling gimmick had always been he was impervious to pain. And there's a great story that Solo Monster tells over on his podcast that you guys should go check out. Don't know if it's true or if it's false. He even says that on there, but it's about Gypsy Joe and a friend of his going to a bar talking to a girl, and his friend ends up shooting him, and he no-sells getting shot.
That sounds like a wrestling urban legend.
Yeah, so you guys can go and check that out if you're interested. But anyway, so him and Gypsy Joe approaches New Jack in the back, and he says, "Hey, I can teach you a lot of things, kid," or whatever. So we already learned that if you talk to New Jack backstage, But that was kind of a
Wait,
little condescending comment, but we don't know exactly how it
wait,
was said.
wait. By this time, this is probably the 5th or 6th time that he said, I was high off cocaine.
Well, he also said he felt he took this too far. He's like, I knew he was 72 years old, but by the time he got to the ring, I forgot.
I would have popped so hard if New Jack just once said cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Well, it's probably copywritten now, so he couldn't say it. He probably did say it, and they had to edit it out. I'm sure of it.
And I just want to say, I met Gypsy Joe during my time in Tennessee. Very nice man. He didn't deserve his ass whooping.
Was it
Dude,
before or
that was
after
disgusting. That was a disgusting display. Just like Jim Cornette said, this is a bad look for wrestling.
Was it before or after this?
I was way after this.
Did you have a discussion
This
with him
was-
about this at all?
No, I didn't even put the two pieces together.
You probably didn't.
Dude,
But-
had to have been tough. He took 3 metal bats, shots to the head.
So when you met him, was he still wrestling?
I'm pretty sure he was.
That's a tough son of a bitch, yo. Well, so
Yeah.
anyway, they go out there to have the match, like Chris Black just said. New Jack's high as fuck. They're having a regular wrestling match, but Gypsy Joe is no selling everything that New Jack does because that's his whole gimmick, that he's impervious to pain. But nobody informed New Jack about this. So New Jack is just going along, having a professional wrestling match. He's getting no sold. The crowd's calling him nigger and racial slurs and go home, N-word, and all of this crap. So he says he starts getting pissed off. So he just starts shooting on Gypsy Joe. Gypsy Joe still kind of doing his best to kind of no-sell everything. So then New Jack says he hops in the ring and grabs a bat and is wrapped in barbed wire. He just starts wailing on Gypsy Joe. And yeah, he beat.
So he hit him so hard with the barbed wire bat that the barbed wire flew off of it, and then he gave 2 more shots for his trouble.
Right. So that's pretty much this match. It ends up getting stopped. Nothing really comes of it again, but he beat a 70-year-old man with a baseball bat, not gimmick baseball bat. And so now we move down to, I believe it was Jacksonville, Florida that they were in. And he's wrestling for a fed down there called Thunder Wrestling Federation that was spearheaded by a guy named MWW.
So how many attempted murders are we at right now? 4?
3.
That we know about? Okay.
So now we get to the true most attempted murder, I guess you could say. It can kind of be argued between this and the Vic Grimes match. He ends up having a match down there in Thunder Wrestling Federation with a guy named Hunter Red. And Hunter Red approaches New Jack before the match, says, hey, let's lay out the match. New Jack says, we'll talk about it backstage. The guy says, no, we'll talk about it right now. New Jack says, I said, we'll talk about it backstage. So you already rubbed New Jack a little bit the wrong way. They go backstage, start discussing their match. New Jack is laying out the match to Hunter Red. Hunter Red gets pissed off and walks off. Hunter Red had requested this match with MWW, who was the promoter of the show. He said he wanted to work New Jack. And MWW says he feels that maybe Hunter Red, the nerves have started getting to him, and that's why he probably walked out on New Jack, but New Jack took it kind of as a slight, or he's like, what the fuck is dude's problem? But it appears they went out there to start just having a regular wrestling match. They even lock up. They had Jim Cornette doing some analyzing the video, and they had D'Lo Brown analyzing the video, and they're like, oh, they're locked up. He puts New Jack in the corner. New Jack says, hey, he puts me in the corner, and he throws a punch, and he's like, he hits me in the nose. He's like, I already got a big ass nose. I don't need nobody making it any bigger. So he's like, he throws one punch, hits him in the nose. He throws another punch, he hits him in the nose. So now New Jack's getting kind of agitated. And so they lock up again, and he has New Jack up against the ropes. And they even pointed out, he's like, New Jack is talking to him. And New Jack is like, hey, like, what? You trying to go on me? You trying to go? And so I guess the guy either didn't respond or he said hell yeah or something. And then New Jack explained that he had like a Wolverine glove or like type claw type thing, and one of the plates had broken off of it. And so he had it in his pocket. He pulls it out. And he just starts shanking this guy in the back. And then they end up outside the ring, and he's still shanking the guy. And then the guy's hanging onto his leg for dear life. While there's kids in the front row and women all around, and somebody in the crowd ended up calling 911. He said that there's a black guy in here there's a black guy in camouflage in here stabbing a white guy. And so the police show up, guns drawn. They say, why do you hate? Tell New Jack to drop the weapon. Ask him, why does he hate white people? And New Jack ends up going to jail for pretty much attempted murder. Charges were going to be pressed. We'll get into that very shortly. But what did you guys see in the film that they showed? And I know we talked about it before, but some people might be newer listeners. How do you respond to somebody that's just not, maybe they're not shooting on you, but there's just a potato factory?
You want to take it first, Mustafa?
So wait, so here's where it doesn't make sense to me. Why did he bring a shank to the ring in the first place?
Because he crazy.
You know, it's like it's kind of like, you know, you go somewhere and you shoot somebody. Like, why did you even have a gun at that point? Like, I feel like it's almost premeditated, because when you watch the video, I mean, they talk about look, this is them locking up. This is them getting confused. This is him talking to him. This is him not responding. Yeah, that make it sound like that was a whole 5 minutes. That was literally 30 seconds at the most. Soon as they got on the ropes, New Jack got to stabbing. Yeah. So there was, I don't believe all that, but, you know, whatever it is, what it is. When you get in a ring, all right, with somebody like that, you have to make a decision, okay? You have to kind of figure out, is this person like, you know, shooting with you? Like, or are they it's just the way they are? Like, there's one gentleman, I'm not going to say his name, that trained with us for a little bit, and he is known for giving you them hands when you're in the ring.
We already know who it is. Go ahead and say it.
To be, no, it's nobody. Like, it's somebody that was a trainee and they had a couple matches. So nobody would know. But when he gets in there, his kicks are gonna hurt. His punches are gonna hurt. But he's a big dude, and he feels that, like, that's his character. So, you know, you give him his stuff back. You know, you give him back to him hard. Now, you got people like Skull Crusher, who's going to hit you hard. It's going to be safe, so it's okay. It's not like he's just going to punch you in the eye as hard as he can, or punch you in the jaw as hard as you can where you have a broken jaw or something like that. No, he's going to give you a forearm. You're going to feel it. You're going to register whether you want it or not. You're going to sell it whether you want to. So you just got to determine, hey, is this person being safe with me or they're not? If they're not being safe with you, or, you know, you just kind of got to be like, hey, I need you to lighten up a little bit. Now, if they keep giving you hard shots like that, then you give it back to them. And then once you give it back to them, they still go, all right, you may got to mess them up. You may have to roll them up and get that pin. You might just have to excuse yourself from the ring and take a count out. You just kind of got to gauge it based on, you know, the situation.
Right. So, kind of piggybacking off what Mustafa just said. Yeah. So if someone is trying to get too aggressive or too rough, I'll normally give them a warning first. You know, like you said, take them to the corner, talk to them, like, hey, bro, calm it down. Take it down a notch. If they continue to be rough with you, then I'm going to get stiff back, and I'm going to give a second warning. Hey, bro, calm down. After that, all bets off. I'm going to kick you right in the nose, and I'm going to break something. I've done it a couple times. Broken. I've busted.
I was just about to ask, have you ever had to just have a shoot match with somebody because they were just so fucking reckless with you?
There's only one match I can think of where I put hands on a guy. Harker Durg, I will say his name, in BCW, because he was pissed because he had to lose, and then he was half-assing it in the ring, and he was making me look bad. So as a babyface, I kept cutting him off, kept chopping him, kept stiffing him, and the last kick was a kick right to his jaw for the finish. So, oh well.
Black Mass.
No, it was like a Van Damme top rope
kick.
Yep, right in his jaw. But I was always told that you never want to get into a full-on shoot fight in front of the fans. Like Mustafa said, if it gets to that point, I have a few like shoot submission holds that I know that I will make you tap out whether it's planned or not. Or if it's that serious, I'm going to take a powder and I'm going to see you in the locker room.
Time to go night. Right? All right. So
Wait, before you go on, so after going into all these 4 incidents with New Jack, the reason why I keep saying that this man is psycho, either he's psycho or he's pussy. Because if you had this type of beef with someone, just lay hands on them. Why you got to go to stabbing with weapons? Why do you have to beat up an old man with a bat? Are your hands not sufficient enough? Like, I don't understand. Like, if you're supposed to be such a tough guy, and New Jack, he seems like he's legitimately tough. If you are that tough of a dude, just lay hands on him. The fact that he goes straight to a weapons means he's psycho.
And I forgot to mention he was high on cocaine in this match as well.
I just wonder if it's one of those things where he feels that he has to live the gimmick. And I wonder if that's the issue, because when he speaks, he seems like he's a very intelligent person. He doesn't seem like he has a screw loose.
He seems like he can work in like the banking industry or something.
Bipolar.
I don't know about that.
Bipolar. That's how he can flip the switch. You think it's bipolar?
I don't think it's bipolar because the flip
PTSD.
The flip is switched in the locker room. It's not like I said,
heavy drug use.
Yeah, I think that
I create a big old mixed concoction of crazy.
I think that's part of it because you know how they talk about you drink liquor and it gives you the liquid courage. He does cocaine because, like I said, why isn't he addressing? If somebody disrespects him in the locker room, why aren't you bringing it up in the locker room? You're waiting until you go out there in front of people and somebody's unsuspecting, and then you're taking advantage of it, and you're probably doing the cocaine because if you were sober, you're not gonna do that shit.
Right. Hell, I'm leery about guys who have a beer or two before a match. I'm like, bro, like, we're not doing no dangerous shit. Like, we're just not. If someone was just high, I promise you, I just refuse to work them. I just wouldn't. You're not gonna put me at risk.
Right. And so New Jack ended up going to jail after this. Hunter Red comes to visit him in jail. He's like, hey, look, I will drop the charges if we can travel the circuit in Florida and work this as an angle. Like, I'm looking for New Jack or whatever, and we can make some money. And so New Jack says, well, you got to drop the charges first. And so New Jack said he spent 3 weeks in jail. Hunter Red dropped the charges. New Jack got out. He put all the shit in storage and left the fucking state and never spoke to Hunter Red ever again. So
got worked.
So again, he escaped without any consequences. And that's pretty much where the documentary ends. The last thing that they ask New Jack is they ask him, how does the movie of New Jack end? If they were to make a movie about your life, how does it end? He says it ends with him sitting in a wheelchair, snorting coke, sticking up his middle fingers and saying, thank you, bitches. Which, that just sounds like something Chris Black would have also said.
No, it's going to end up with that dude face down in somebody's bathroom after he even snorted some bad stuff.
Now, this may come off as saying something horribly, but they could have took him instead of Eddie Guerrero. Just saying.
Oh, wow. It got quiet.
Hey, narcissist, don't give a fuck. So,
listen, before we go out there, I just want to say, New Jack, I'm just playing.
Something interesting that I heard in one of New Jack's shoot interviews. So they asked him a question, just a little more lighthearted. They asked him a question. So what is the 3 most racist people in professional wrestling? So he was like, he thought about it for a second. He was like, okay, number 1, Jeff Jarrett and his daddy, which, okay, I can see that. Number 2 was shocking. He said Jim Cornette. He said because Cornette's known for throwing the word nigger around. And 3rd, of course, Vince McMahon.
I could see all of those. Like I don't think Jim Cornette is any angel at all. Nobody from the South do I believe. But I also think Jim Cornette is an equal opportunity. He's gonna just say whatever the fuck Jim Cornette wants to fucking say.
Right. I think he's just like if he throws the words around, it's just like that's probably I don't want to give him a pass.
Yeah, I was just about to say I don't want to make it seem like I was about to say that I don't want it to sound like we're co-signing.
Discriminate. He doesn't seem like he would discriminate, but he's just I don't know. He's kind of loose with the word.
Yeah, like I said, I don't want to make it sound like we're endorsing it or saying it's okay that he says it. I'm saying I could see him saying it as a white man from the South, especially that grew up around the wrestling industry. But we hear the way
nigga goes flying.
But we hear the way he talks about, and now he kind of tiptoes around the words on his show. But pretty much when he say doing the jazz hands and all this type of stuff about,
Kenny Olivier.
Yeah, Kenny Olivier and all that stuff. What he really wants to say is he's hopping around like a flaming maggot. That's really I'm sure he'll let the F word fly. And especially coming up in the attitude era, like hell, shit. We seen recent examples of like, and I don't even want to get into all of that, but you know how people brought up the whole when he did the chicken joke, and then the Jerry the King Lawler thing that happened a couple weeks back, where he did the ramen noodle moonsault. Like they're old white man from the South. I don't expect anything necessarily less. And like I said, it's not like I'm giving them a pass. But also,
some of these people should know better.
But also a joke is a joke. But Jerry the King Lawler stuff, like I said, I'm not gonna get into it. But he didn't even call the move right. It took it was like a 15-second delay before he even had a response for what had happened. So yeah, but anyways, what'd you guys think about the story of New Jack overall?
Shocking.
Learn anything new?
I heard he was crazy.
I really enjoyed watching the start of his career with Smoky Mountain Wrestling. That was a side of New Jack that I hadn't seen before. My introduction to New Jack was actually because I didn't watch ECW. No big surprise because I was never a fan of hardcore wrestling. I consider it, I'm sorry, to be garbage wrestling. I'm one of those guys. Although, yes, there are some hardcore wrestlers who legitimately know how to work. But they just so happen to do hardcore. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the people that just do the garbage shit. You know, Sandman, you one of them. So the first time I ever was introduced to New Jack was Beyond the Ring. He had a couple segments in that, and I actually looked the guy up and was just like, who is this guy? You know, and listened to a few of his shoot interviews where he said like the Dudley stole his shit. Like I forgot which shoot interview it was, but he basically was going off like everyone steal my shit. You know, Nation of Domination, the whole camouflage look for the Dudleys. He's like, everybody steals my shit. So I knew he was controversial. I did not know he was a killer.
I ain't a killer, but don't push me, though.
Oh, it don't take much to push him.
Xavier Mustafa?
I don't know.
Well, anyways, that was that was our review of Viceland's episode 3, The Life and Crimes of New Jack. Go ahead and give out your social medias.
Wow, mine's kind of long now. You can catch me at Xavier Mustafa on Facebook and Twitter. You can also catch me at XM Cinema on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram. And you can follow my solo podcast, also called XM Cinema, where I review movies and TV shows and do my reactions and reviews. So check me out.
You can catch me at Instagram and Facebook at The Natural Chris Black, and on Twitter at @the_natural_CB.
And just remember, kids, cocaine is a hell of a drug. That's all I want to say before we go.
And you're already checking us out here on YouTube. Be sure to give us a like, hit that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell so that you're updated whenever we upload a new video here on YouTube. Also, be sure to subscribe to our podcast, which is completely different content from this, that drops every second and fourth Saturday of the month. And you can find that by searching hashtag Come Get Slammed, or just Saturday Night Slamcasters on your favorite podcasting app. You can also find me at Slamcaster TE78 over on Twitter, and you can find us on Facebook at Saturday Night Slamcasters, or you can use the hashtag Come Get Slammed. We'll be back to you guys with our review of the 4th episode of Dark Side of the Ring, which I believe is the Brawl for All. So that will be dropping in 2 weeks. So 2 Wednesdays from now. And yeah, other than that, we up out of here. Holla at your boys. Come get slammed. Peace.